Before the streets come alive, the action kicks off in the Tobago House with the 34th sitting of the 2021 to 2025 session of the Tobago House of Assembly. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has announced that the Constitution Tobago Self-Government Bill and the Tobago Island Government Bill will soon be debated and put to a vote in Parliament. Therefore, Minority Leader Kelvon Morris will lay a motion seeking support for the unobstructed passage of these bills as he feels to be.
Before we left, I had recognized Assemblyman Charles Panton. You may now join this debate.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Given the nature of this motion, I would like to proceed with Standing Order 42.7. Thank you, Bagatelle, Bacalet, and Tobago for this opportunity to present. Madam Presiding Officer, at this juncture, I would like to introduce the discussion on the second draft of the Fisheries Management Bill 2023, just to show how ridiculous this PNM government is. Madam Presiding Officer, the second draft of the Fisheries Management Bill 2023 was presented by the Ministry in Trinidad to Tobago in a last-minute one-day consultation recently. At that time, the Tobago fisherfolk had to review over 452 pages compiled as a document in less than 24 hours to give feedback. What was comical about this proposed bill? In Section 7.2, the Director of Fisheries in Tobago was given the power to act on behalf of the Secretary of Food Security. Wow. Also, the Minister will be giving directions to the Director of Fisheries here in Tobago, and in many parts of the bill, the Director was placed above the Administrator and the Secretary. The bill basically says, if the Secretary, he or she wants to consult with the Minister, they can. But the Minister in Trinidad has to instruct the Director here in Tobago. This is such a blatant attempt to undermine the office of the Secretary and the Tobago House of Assembly. Just like food production, agriculture, forestry, environment, fisheries is one of the areas listed under the 5th schedule of Act 40, 1996. So you could clearly see that the PNM has no intention of allowing Tobago to pursue self-determination. In Tobago, the livelihoods of approximately 2,000 persons are directly dependent upon the opportunities afforded by the fisheries industry. The fishermen, it's about 937 fishermen, or fisher folk rather, that have IDs processed to date. Also to date, in 2024, every incentive as it relates to agriculture, fisheries, and everything else comes from Trinidad, while the Division of Food Security continues to be underfunded in Tobago. Food security gets zero funding for development after wages have been paid. So naturally, whoever forms the government in Trinidad will have the upper hand politically and financially. Don't be fooled, Tobagonians. Read the obvious signs of economic dominance and control over your affairs. Madam Presiding Officer, the Fisheries Management Bill in its present form shuts out the Assembly and the Division from meaningful participation in fishery management. The clauses in the bill, particularly 4 and 7, leave the Assembly as an unwilling bystander in the affairs of fisherfolk and communities within the island. Our overall recommendation now is to redesign this bill so that the Secretary, whoever that may be, and the Director in Tobago position stands equally with their Trinidad counterparts, save in the areas of foreign policy and international treaty obligations. Madam Presiding Officer, let me discuss the bill's impact upon the Assembly's management of Tobago's fishery and related industries. The bill limits the Assembly's management of fisheries in 2 ways. There are expressed exceptions against the Assembly in the formulation and implementation of policies in the bill, And 2, the new systems in the bill likely fall outside the incidental powers given to the Assembly under Section 25 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. According to Clause 4, the Secretary is conferred the power, the duty to discharge a function and a discretion in relation to fishery issues in Tobago, save for some specific exceptions as mentioned above. These exceptions include the operationalization of the board, clauses 12 to 20, the functions of the fund, clauses 23 to 30, designating fisheries, implementing management plans, approving interim management plans, ensuring that management plans conform with international law, and preparing national fisheries strategies, clauses 31, 37.3, 39, and 40. Selection of fishery management measures, fishing effort and catch controls, additional measures to achieve the fishery management objectives, review of management measures and designating local fisheries management areas, and prohibition on fishing, clauses 42.1, 43.1, 44.1, 44.3, 45, and 48. Subsidies and their revision for fishery management plans, clauses 50 and 51. The application process for, authorization of, suspension of, and the terms and conditions of permission given to commercial vessels to fish in local waters, clauses 90, 91, and 93 to 97. Recreational fishing license for foreign vessels, recreational fishing outside of national jurisdiction, and suspension of those licenses, clauses 102, 103, and 108. Registration for, suspension, and surrender of commercial fishing license for foreign vessels, clauses 114 to 118. The identification of ports and designation of landing sites, clause 121. The power to exempt a vessel from requiring and install, maintain, and operate a mobile transceiver unit or other electronic device while in the fishery waters, clause 151. Fixing the penalty for offenses and sending out notices in the bill, clauses 187 and 188.2. Appeals in respect of any decision made by the minister being held to the Environmental Commission, clause 205. Declaring any portion of the fishery waters as a protected area, clause 216. The power to make regulations, clause 225. All this proves that the Secretary is therefore excluded from key decisions that affect Tobago. Wow. This is a bill that gives absolutely no control to Tobagonians over its own resources. The Secretary is excluded from participating in management plans. This means that the officer who operates directly with the public on fishing-related issues is barred completely from contributing meaningfully to the plans that affect their lives. Moving on to Director of Tobago, which is created by Clause 7. This person is authorized or entrusted with the responsibility to provide technical and administrative advice to the Secretary for the better discharge of their duties under the bill, Clause 7.2. The proposed position of Director in Tobago is that of a public officer who will be appointed by the Public Service Commission. The bill interprets the role of the Director in Tobago, right? The role of that Director means the public officer appointed by the Public Service Commission as Director, Marine Resources and Fisheries in Tobago, or any other person acting in the post or assigned to carry out the functions of the Director in Tobago. At first look, the Director in Tobago should operate similar to the Director in Trinidad, save that their remit is exclusively for Tobago-related matters. The ending of Clause 7.3 reads, where in this Act a power is conferred or a duty is imposed on the Director, then in relation to Tobago, including the Tobago fishery waters, the Director in Tobago shall exercise that power or discharge that duty. In the beginning of Clause 7.3, there are more than 43 exceptions of powers that cannot be exercised by the director in Tobago. More than 43 exceptions of powers that cannot be exercised by the director in Tobago, despite those same powers being available for the director in Trinidad. Wow. We're going through the 43. Please listen to these exceptions. The responsibility to be the competent authority for the purposes of effecting compliance with Trinidad and Tobago's international obligations, Clause 6.3. The ability to recommend subsidies and any other economic incentives to achieve fishery management objectives, Clause 52. The ability to revise subsidies every 3 years, Clause 51. Creation and maintenance of a record of fishing vessels, Clause 61. The ability for owners of fishing vessels or persons operating those vessels in fishery waters or international waters to apply to have a vessel entered into the record and the power to issue a certificate of record for the vessel, Clause 61, 1 and 4. To direct and authorize office to conduct an inspection of a vessel before its entry on the record of Trinidad and Tobago fishing vessels, making changes to the vessel, refusing to issue and suspension of a certificate of record, clauses 62, 64, 65, and 66. The surrender and cancellation of the certificate of record, clauses 67 and 68. To prosecute persons who tampers with a certificate of record, clause 71. Permit applications, refusals of permits, setting the terms and conditions or varying them for the permits related to commercial fishing vessels, clauses 91, 91.3, 93.2, and 94.1. Suspension and revocation or surrender of commercial fishing vessel authorization and reissuing authorizations, clauses 96.1, 96.5, and 97.3. Issuing recreational fishing permits and receiving the prescribed fee, clause 102. Suspension, revocation, and surrender of recreational fishing permits, clauses 108 and 109. Notification for agreements with foreign states for commercial foreign fishing vessels, clauses 110.1, D2. Report to be made by the operator of a foreign fishing vessel intending to navigate through fishery waters without a valid commercial foreign fishing vessel license and setting up of reports requirement for the vessels in the fishery environment, clauses 112.2 and 4. The ability to recommend to the minister the issuance or refusal of a commercial foreign fishing vessel license. So you see it's 43. To recommend the terms and conditions of a commercial foreign vessel license to the minister, clause 116.2. Suspension and revocation of a commercial foreign fishing vessel license, clauses 117.1, 2, 2A and 2B. Surrender and cancellation of a transshipment permit, clause 129. To receive the notification from the operator of a foreign fishing vessel, clause 131.2. The functions of the director as a competent authority for the purposes of fisheries management, clauses 133. To recommend the issuance or refusal of an import, export, or re-export permit for fishes, clauses 134, 1, 2, 4, 4A, and 4B. To deal with the release certificates for each shipment that is required for import, export, and re-export permit, clauses 135, 1 to 6. To deal with catch certificates issued that is required for each species of fish that is exported from Trinidad and Tobago, clauses 136, 1 to 5. To cancel catch certificates and require that equivalent documents from a foreign jurisdiction to be produced, clause 136B. The procedure for import, export, or re-export of fishing vessels and associated equipment, clause 137.1. We almost finished. Participation in research, collaboration, and data sharing, and application for a fisheries scientific research permit with its accompanying terms and conditions, clauses 141, 143, and 145, to issue permits for fish bioproduction